1,450 kilometers per hour. That's the speed at which the Super Heavy booster hit the Gulf during its last flight, uncontrolled after a failed braking maneuver. Since then, the most powerful flying machine in history has been grounded, by order of the American Aviation Authority. Now the next one is on the launch pad. And with Flight 13, SpaceX wants to prove one thing: that Flight 12 was a fluke, and not a design flaw of the new generation. This is your briefing. What is flying, what is being tested, what you need to watch out for, and what the government is still hung up on. My name is Sowen, and this is Mars Chronicles, my story. A quick note on the situation. The full analysis of Flight 12 is linked below. On May 22nd, version 3 flew for the first time with the new Raptor 3 engines. The ship performed well, deployed Starlinker dummies, and splashed down precisely in the Indian Ocean. However, the booster failed to complete its boost-back maneuver, the braking maneuver that allows the first stage to turn around. Several engines failed to ignite, magic followed. The maneuver was aborted after less than 20 seconds, and the stage crashed hard into the Gulf. On May 27, the FAA officially classified this as a mishap and placed Starship under a launch ban, until the investigation is completed or the agency grants an early return to flight clearance. It's important to note that there were no injuries and no damage. And that's exactly the prerequisite for the FAA to even be able to issue such an early authorization. They have done that in the past as well. For example, before Flight 8. So what is Flight 13? Basically, it's a repeat test. Booster 20 and Ship 40 will be flying. Again from Launch Pad 2 at Starbase, again on a suborbital trajectory, so just short of a full orbit around the Earth, with the ship splashing down in the Indian Ocean. No orbit, and very importantly, no attempt to catch the booster with the catch arms. Elon Musk himself put it that way. Flight 13 is supposed to deliver the second controlled splashdown of a V3 ship. The first catch attempt will only happen on Flight 14. And SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell added to that in the CNBC interview. On Flight 14, the first real orbital injection is also supposed to happen ideally. That means entering a complete orbit. After Flight 13, the stated goal is to launch once a month. But all of this depends on Flight 13 closing that one open wound. The special focus of this flight is on the boost-back maneuver, and therefore on the behavior of the Raptor 3 engines during in-flight relight. Everything else is a bonus. Let's take a look at the hardware. And the test campaign behind it was more turbulent than usual. Ship 40 actually completed its testing in tandem with Ship 41. The two swapped places several times at the messy test stand. Ship 40 rolled out first, but only completed one static fire with a single engine and returned unexpectedly. Apparently, a problem prevented the big 6-engine test. So Ship 41, which is actually intended for Flight 14, was temporarily allowed onto the test stand for its cryo tests, while SpaceX solves the problem on Ship 40. After that, the two swapped again, and on July 1st it was in place. The long-awaited static fire with all 6 engines for a full 60 seconds, including previous tests of the front and rear flaps. Ship 40 has since returned to the Mega Bay for final launch preparations. This back and forth seems chaotic, but above all, it shows one thing. SpaceX now uses every free minute on every test stand. Booster 20 started its cryo campaign on June 7, during which the tanks are thoroughly tested with cryogenic liquids. As of the script deadline on July 9th, it is on Launch Pad 2 for its final test campaign. This has been documented, among others, by NASA Spaceflight on site. Next up there is the static fire, which is the ignition test of the 33 engines on the ground. That's the first big milestone on the way to launch. The launch pad itself has also done its homework. Launch Pad 2 withstood the maiden flight of the V3 well, and it recently completed 4 tests of the water deluge system, for the first time since Flight 12. And there was a detail that really stood out. SpaceX simulated a launch in one run, and just a few minutes later, a booster return. For this, the tower's grab arms practiced high-speed catching maneuvers. For Flight 13, that's not relevant yet, as I said, no catch, but it shows how seriously SpaceX is taking the catching attempt for Flight 14. They're already setting the stage while the current act hasn't even been performed yet. And the supplies are coming in. In McGregor, the Raptor 3 engine with the record-breaking serial number 188 recently rolled past the cameras. A brief moment before things move on. If you're as excited about Flight 13 as we are, then hype this video up right now. It's just a single click, but it makes sure that YouTube shows the briefing to a lot more people before the launch. Thanks for that. Let's continue with the paperwork. The most important thing was still pending when the script was finished. The official approval from the FAA. Either through the completion of the MISIB investigation or through an early return to flight decision. Just like there was before Flight 8. Without this checkmark, nothing takes off, no matter how ready the hardware is. And the date? As is usual with Starship, that's a moving target. At the time the script was finished, the launch databases listed July 16th with a window starting at 12:45 a.m. Central European Summertime. Gwynne Shotwell herself mentioned the end of July to the beginning of August. Such precise windows usually only appear once the official airspace and sea area closures are announced. So, the NOTAMs for aviation, the maritime warnings, and the temporary flight restrictions around Starbase. And these documents are exactly what trackers like Next Spaceflight collect centrally. As soon as the date is set, you'll hear about it from us. And as always, we'll stream the launch. What should you focus on while watching? First and foremost, the seconds after stage separation. The booster rotates and has to reignite its engines cleanly. On Flight 12, it tipped over unusually quickly. The ignitions failed one after another. If this time the full planned ignition sequence works and the maneuver burns for about a minute, the most important test of the day is passed, even if something goes wrong afterwards. Secondly, the engine discipline. During the ascent on Flight 12, one engine each failed on the booster and the ship. That must not happen again in a maturing system. Third, the ship during re-entry, whose maneuverability the new generation has already impressively demonstrated, including the spectacular camera satellites flying alongside it. Assess if SpaceX will again deploy Starlink mockups and note how routine this has become. My assessment, Flight 13 is not spectacular. Will mockups be deployed and how routine is this process now? Finally, my assessment. Flight 13 is not a spectacular milestone flight, and that's exactly what makes it so important. SpaceX has permission for 25 launches per year from Starbase, is building 3 more pads in Florida, and is publicly talking about thousands of flights and a monthly cadence starting this summer. All these numbers are worthless as long as the first stage doesn't reliably master its braking maneuver. Because without a clean boost back, there's no catch at the tower. Without a catch, there's no rapid reuse, and without reuse, there's no cadence. Flight 13 is therefore the confidence test for Raptor 3. If it passes, Flight 14 with a catch attempt and orbital injection will probably be the biggest chapter in the program since the first catch. My name is Serwan, and that was Mars Chronicles. Thank you for tuning in. Per aspera ad astra.